lower bracket run, you are playing a lot more matches, you also risk having less time to be able to adjust whatever needs to be adjusted, right? Whether it's between players, whether it's a strategy that is necessarily working, or maybe it's incorporating something that perhaps in a future tournament is another patch, right? Which does happen altogether. So I feel like right now it's going to be really, really dicey for whoever loses this match. But I think that both teams, they are up to the challenge indeed. I mean, we did see that T1, they have incredible endurance based on day one.
Sure, yeah, and I would say for both teams, actually, a lot rests on their shoulders, depending on their fan base as well, right? T1, what it would mean for them to be the first Korean team to move into the playoffs, of course, partly due to schedule, maybe, but, I mean, again, holding that pride up of that brand of T1. Meanwhile, ZETA Division, they've always had the backing of the entire Japanese Valorant community. They couldn't deliver in 2023. They always fell just short, and to say we're back with a new color, with new faces, and we're trying to rise back to the top, bring Japanese Valorant to the world map, that would mean a ton to not just the team, but all the fans.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, granted, yeah, I think there's still certainly issues to work through there for Global, but they're proving that they can improve very rapidly, because that was a very different team compared to what we had just seen yesterday from them. A lot more concise plays, a lot more synergy between all of those players. You give them another couple days, if you fall to that lower bracket, who knows what Global's going to look like then. So being able to just avoid that matchup, completely and get seeded forward, that's what both teams definitely want.
I love that all of the teams right now, they do have kind of like a bird's eye view of how they want to play out this entire year, right? Because of the new format, because of the new scheduling. And for example, like T1, to continue the success that they had last year, making it into Champions, right? They didn't exactly get very, very far in Champions LA, but of course, they want to change that. I do remember, Autumn was saying how they actually love that his team managed to make it so far, because again, that was them in their debut, right? They managed to make it into Champions within 1 year.
Yeah, and I think something else they want to prove is that they built this roster to not lose steam. They built this roster to continue building on that energy, the momentum, to continue to innovate, to try to become a leader here in VCT Pacific, not just someone who's always challenging the top level. So this is a brand new idea. I mean, there's always been a lot of questions, and I think the community and maybe some of the other coaching staff also divided when they look at T1's philosophy, because it is a little new, especially for Korean esports as well. I mean, Korean esports in any title, it's always about going textbook and then perfecting it. But T1 is here to say, no, we want to switch it up. We want to be the ones who have figured out Valorant itself.
And, I mean, it's been a really strong start to that so far. I mean, it wasn't enough to get the trophy back at the AVL, certainly not. But they're in a very strong position right now where it feels like they have this big head start on top of so many other teams that are in this league, that they have firepower in every single role, and that they have a very strong chance of being able to lift that trophy, or at the very least be in that grand final.
Yeah. I think exactly that. Being in the grand final, I actually do have, I'm preempting my predictions over here, but I actually do have PRX and T1 as my grand finalists, prediction.
And that sounds like a very good grand final.
I do want to see that Sosanza Derby Part 2.
Yeah, well, yeah, that too, and then they had a great match at the AVL as well, kind of bouncing back and forth, so that could be exciting. I mean, any of the teams that have gotten their wins so far, I think, showed what their peak potential could look like, so this is building up to be a very exciting year here for VCT Pacific.
Well, let's get it started. Let's throw it on over to the stage to check out our teams.
If we might have more time. Never.
The winners match. Who will punch their ticket through to the playoff stage? They've defeated the Devils. They've claimed their first ace with Izu. It's mechanics and teamwork at the highest level. It's T1!
we'll conduct a coin toss to determine the higher.
All right,
seed
here
of
we
the
are
tournament.
entering into our map vetoes. What are we thinking here, Achilles? Especially since, as we
so
mentioned,
Tails,
a lot of the
T1,
performances
we'll
here are
pick
going to
a
be enabled by what maps we're going to find our teams on.
I'm not sure what to think. I mean, right now, we can see the coin toss taken there. Bias Zeta still get the first map veto at the end of this all.
Zeta bans
Curious
Breeze.
what they do want to
T1,
take
we
away. I
ban
mean,
up.
from T1, we saw that it was pretty rocky from the opening game on Breeze, but they still want to take away after that 18-16 victory that T1 did get. And quick ban on Icebox, and that means that Ascent is open, and Zeta will take it.
All right, they want to go with the steady known factor. Now, I mean, we've seen some teams that have tried to rely on Ascent, and it didn't work out so far, but I would have faith in Zeta's Ascent. They've always clawed back in.
Lotus.
The
Is
possibility
selected.
Oh.
The chamber matchup, it can happen. It's
I-
very realistic. I can see it. I'm going to be so disappointed. I'm going to be flattened if it doesn't.
I mean, yeah, because both of them have used it on Lotus already, so I see no reason why it wouldn't come up. T1 banning out Bind. I mean, sure, different rosters, but they were able to showcase a good Bind last year, and then it got read by some other teams right away, so that leaves Sunset for the last one.
Yeah, the floatingness, once again, we did see Zeta leaving this one open. Wasn't one of their bans when they went up against Global. So, still feeling confident enough to be able to play that map. Should it go the distance? Should it go to 3? But, I mean, obviously, it's that map 2. That is the really big one that we have our eyes on, because that's where the chamber could come into play. But for now, we can very much focus on that heads-up between Dep and Saya players. We get ready to go to Ascent.
Yeah, I mean, all 3 of these maps really could go either way, and all 3 of them could very well be these nail-biters all the way to the end, because Ascent, again, it's the battle between Dep and Saya player. Also, you have these cores on both teams that are able to kind of carry out the old ideas. This map has been around for so long, so it's much more about that communication and the mentality. Then there's Lotus, the potential chamber battle. Then there's Sunset. T1 shows some good ideas, but Zeta has been floating it.
Yeah.
Just want to jump in here. I love that we're seeing a lot of Zeta fans here.
Oh, they are everywhere.
Yes.
Even here, like, you know, in home court, I guess, of T1, right? But again, we are going into Ascent, we're going into Lotus, and we're going to Sunset. I like that we're already pointing out very interesting head-to-heads right off the bat, right? Ascent, we're seeing Saya player and Death. Lotus, potentially the Xcurrent and Laz face-off. Sunset, potentially, well, we'll get to that when we cross that bridge. But for now, these 2 maps, I think they're going to be very exciting. And as we mentioned again, they could go any which way, but I think, Achilles, we are favoring T1 here. Who do you think is going to have that moment, I guess, or are we getting like those excellent highlights here?
Who's going to be the
Ascent?
X Factor?
Yeah, the X Factor here.
I mean,
Xcurrent. The X
I would say that for
Factor.
Lotus. I would say that for Lotus, though.
yeah, but I think just given that it's Ascent, you always kind of think of the Jet players on this map.
Yes.
She's so prevalent. We very rarely see teams start to stray away from that. You know, PaperX is one of them, kind of bringing out the Reyna from time to time. Every now and then we would see, you know, maybe a Phoenix in the mix there, Raze, oddly enough, but Jet is so prevalent. I feel like this has to be that battle between Dep and Saya players, seeing who is going to be able to get these opening picks for their team.
Yeah, now there is a world where Dep is the one who goes back to play the Sova, though, on Ascent as well, right? And Sovas have also been very crucial on Ascent in the past. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly where that is, because it does seem like they really want to let Euron and Huron, especially Euron, kind of go for his comfort picks on each map and then revolve around that. Dep's already started flexing around towards the later half of last year.
Given what we saw, sorry not to cut you off, from Hirodon, it feels like that Sova still would very much be in his hands, because it does feel like you're very much just handicapping yourself not having Dep on that Jet.
I feel like also that this could be a potential to break the usual Ascent composition here, especially on the side of T1. Do you think we're seeing any surprises at all, or are we going with the standard, usual Ascent lineup?
This is the second time that we've had Ascent. The first time that we did have it, it was pretty much just stock standard between the teams. We didn't really get anything too surprising, and I kind of feel like it's likely to happen again. But if somebody does want to kind of reinvent the wheel with this map, then obviously that would be really exciting. The thing that I do want to see, though, more so than a compositional change, is still that continued change in playstyle from Zeta, because this was pretty much the quintessential map for them, where they would just really grind to a halt, wait for those last 20 seconds to show up on the clock before they started going for an execute. So I want to see some faster hits. I want to see a lot more determination and confidence in their play when they get ready to go for attacks or go for retakes.
It's a very good test for ZETA, because Ascent is also that map where while you do want to find your own pacing, you cannot be haphazard about how you push out, whether you're on the attack or defense. You have to be very methodical about it. You have to make sure that you understand how much space you've taken and how that pushes the opponents around the map. So I'm curious. Last time we saw them trying to play more aggressive. It was a little messy, but the aim was able to carry them through a couple of those rounds. Ascent is not going to play like that.
Could we potentially be getting the Chamber matchup here on Ascent? Do you think?
I don't know, just because while Chamber as an individual could still work well on Ascent, it's just that if you're gonna have a Sentinel, Killjoy and even Cypher provide so much value on Ascent.
Yeah, this is kind of similar to Breeze, where this used to be a map where you could very much see a lot of prevalence for that Chamber. He can get an immense amount of value, but ever since the original run, they've moved nerf, moving it now to just the singular pylon, really drastically reducing how much teleport range you have. A lot of those reliable setups that you used to have as a Chamber are completely gone, because you used to be able to peek out, on catwalk, stare across over in the B lobby, and then snap back over towards heaven. Now you can't do that. Taking a look though, it's pretty much stand, but we do have Carpe going over to that Fade here, and the Rossi's on the Viper.
Yeah, so Rossi played that Viper during the off-season as well here on Ascent. So continuing with that double controller, it's Izu and Rossi on Omen and Viper. It's going to be executed on that Cypher. Meanwhile, Last sticking with the age-old Killjoy, going to have a little bit more flexibility in covering mid with utility so that they can rotate a bit more freely around the map.
Yeah, and I love how ZETA are really giving the initiator role over to their young guns, Yuran and Hirorun. Let's see how well they do up against T1 as we head into our final series of the day. Tossing it over to our casters, Azurai and Quack.
So many things has happened today, man. Lots of ups, lots of downs, but we are 100% sure that they have all been bangers, and I expect the same of this last series, T1 versus ZETA Division.
Yeah, the winner of this one definitely goes forward through the playoffs, and that's already a really big deal. Meanwhile, on the other side, starting things off on the map of Ascent, T1, what an interesting composition. We might have seen a little bit of it in the off-season, but up against a more classic one in the form of ZETA Division. But with
starting the
players,
first match, guys. Let's hope.
how's it going to play out?
We'll
पहला
see
मैच
here
यहाँ पे
now,
start हो
Izu's
चुका
been
है और
an
check out
absolute monster, whether he's on
It's
that
lagging,
Yoru
but
or
कोई
here
बात
on
नहीं।
this Omen as well. ZETA Division not
देखेंगे।
wasting any time, already
No
pushed up
problem.
here onto short. Quick contact between Carpe and teammate.
Yeah,
Paranoia does push it back.
yeah.
Very huge use on that,
हो गया
on the scanning and everything, and Dev chases down the kill. Izu does get the contact. Hiroron already here.
So guys,
on Heaven
अपना
does
first
get a
match
couple of
यहाँ पे
frags,
मिल चुका है,
important
ठीक है?
frags that gives access for ZETA on that A site. A quick plan will follow. Executing
Yep.
Rossi remains to
First
get
match
that
is
retake.
started, and
Already
let's see,
so
guys.
quick
It's
into
like
sight,
ZETA and
with that, how do you
T1.
retake